Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the AI Rebels podcast. Today, it's just Jake and I. We're doing one of our one-on-one episodes where we just kind of discuss AI and stuff, in the news recently about AI. We like doing these. Jake, what has caught your eye recently? What have you been chewing on?
I feel like there's just been this one's not necessarily like breaking news,
Mhm.
uh, but something I've just been thinking about as it's just an interesting idea. The CEO of Bumble dating app, right? For those of you who have not dated with dating apps, um, the CEO of Bumble has come out and said that she thinks the future of dating involves building your personal AI and having that AI date other individuals' AI to essentially weed out those those people who you would not want to spend time with, and basically bring top candidates to you that you then can go on actual live dates with, which I love. I think it's fascinating. I think it's a super cool application of AI. I don't know if it'll actually catch on because unless a company were to somehow streamline the process for an individual to tailor an AI personality for themselves, otherwise I'm just not sure on a grand scale how you would make a unique AI for so many people. Anyway, so I don't know.
No, I agree.
That's I'm thinking.
I think that's an example of the an executive being a starry-eyed idealist, right? Because that's kind of their job. They get new ideas brought to them, and their job is to be like the most optimistic person in the world about them.
Right.
And that's not how it works at all companies, but like I feel like that's one of the jobs of the CEO. It's like, oh, this is exciting. What if we did this and this and this, and then everybody else brings it back down to earth.
Yeah.
But let me offer a competing vision that I personally think is more realistic. But I think that kind of plays off a similar idea because I do agree with her that we'll start seeing AI used more and more in lubricating the rails of socialization. And so I think that more what will happen is like each person will just kind of have like their own personalized AI wingman, right? Like you'll be chatting with uh, Sarah or whoever, David, whatever their name is on
Mm-hmm.
Bumble, and your AI companion will chip in, just like, hey, I realized, I was looking at their profile, says they really like coffee. You also like coffee. You just recently went to
Oh,
this cool
interesting.
coffee shop. What if you bring that up? I think that it'll be more like
Yeah.
that because I think that I don't think that people ever want to, with a few exceptions, I don't think that people want to fully delegate their communication to an AI, no
Yeah.
matter how much it's like
Right. Yeah.
you're going to want that
It's
personal touch. But yeah,
yeah. No, that's interesting. I think you might I you're probably right. That's probably more realistic. An AI wingman, there's going to be a lot of very awkward people very happy if that happens.
I hope so. I hope so because like I really feel like there's a lot of people for whom, um, I mean, and some studies have shown this that like a lot of the people who are like, oh, I can't find anybody to date, also report that they haven't approached anybody in the last,
Right.
year, and it's like,
Well,
yeah,
you're
there's
not
your
going to
problem, but
catch
also it's
anything
like,
if you're not throwing your line in the water, you know?
no, exactly, and so I think that a little AI wing buddy could do a lot for helping people exactly throw their line in the water,
Yeah, I
and
think,
yeah.
but yeah, I could see pushback there because is that if you're talking to somebody and they somehow are just connecting with you, right? It's like, man, they just get me. And then you go on a date and it's like, who the heck are you? Like you can't even have a conversation. I wonder if there'd be big blowback there. Or maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just like it lubricates those rails, helps someone who is uncomfortable be more comfortable, and then they are able to have a better conversation. I would be fascinated to see how it played out.
I do agree with like the Bumble CEO that AI is going to have like a role to play in human connection.
Mhm.
Partly, uh, in some ways, I think that the pandemic kind of gave us all social anxiety, like a
Seriously.
really broad scale.
Yeah.
And I think that as much as like, and I am the biggest fan of self checkout in the world. Like, there is nothing I love more than self checkout. If
Yeah.
there's self checkout available, I will be using self checkout. I don't care how many items I have. I don't, nothing
Oh
like
yeah.
that, right? But also at the same time, I'm thinking more and more lately about how the proliferation of self checkout, even in places like gas stations, is probably doing a lot to and I don't want to be too dramatic with it, right? Because like this is, it's you can't
It's just one
extrapolate too
factor.
far. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like I have wondered if the proliferation of things like self checkout are contributing to a decline in social cohesion, just because like people complain about small talk all the time, but it actually plays like a really important role in establishing just those base level social connections, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Where everyone, not everyone, but it's like, generally, and studies bear this out, that like isolation kills. Isolation
Mhm.
is what leads to depression, suicide, drug abuse, etc. Right? Like
Right.
isolation is worse than cigarettes for your health or anything else, right?
Right.
And so I think that, and something that I'm hopeful for with AI is that I hope that we can start reversing some of those trends. Partly because it's like, I think that you can only talk to a robot for so long
Yeah.
before you want to go talk to
Seriously.
other people. And then secondly, one advantage of talking to a robot is like you can try out new social strategies. And if you're someone who struggles with, being awkward, etc., like you have like a low risk place to test that out.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of like
You've
my bull case is like people,
yeah.
get more practice socializing, and then they find it easier to do in real life. But that being said, I think that we have to focus on like creating like the conditions for that to happen. Like because it could obviously go the other way too, right? Right, where it's like people get so obsessed with talking to their robot friends that they aren't motivated to go out and make other friends.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Right. Did you see
it's
the was it a man or woman who married their AI? Did you see this?
no.
This is real. You keep talking. I'm gonna find this.
All right. But yeah, no, and like I think that yeah, we might end up seeing a lot more of that, honestly. And on one hand, it's a little bit dystopian, but on the other, it's like if it makes this person genuinely happy, can we really say that it's wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know. As with all technology, there's such interesting tightropes to walk and such intriguing new social problems to contend with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's let me share this. Yeah, it's fascinating and just the fallout here. Woman who married an AI chatbot is open to finding love in the real world, but says a future partner must accept her virtual husband is here to stay. Yeah, this is real.
It is fascinating.
Married her AI husband. Says she's open to dating other people in the real world. Such an open relationship. Aaron with an E. Oh goodness. Anyway,
That is so fascinating.
made a headlines.
Yeah.
Says he's a perfect husband.
Well, yeah.
He's
They can be
tailor
whatever
made.
you want them to be.
He better be. He better be completely perfect. Anyway.
It is interesting that she, specifically mentions she knows like it's fake. Which,
Yeah, it's like, do you
again, like
though?
I think that yeah, that's what I was gonna say is like the connection is still real in some sense.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the interesting thing about it.
it's completely real other than the physical, like the
Yeah.
emotional, the intellectual, like everything is. I mean, it's a little spooky. It's all
No,
there,
it is,
you
and
know.
it's one of those things that where it's like you start to question the boundaries of reality, and where they're being pushed. And I I go back and forth on this. I think that some of the as we've discussed many times, like I am extremely optimistic about AI, but then
Mm-hmm.
there are you have to acknowledge like the places where it's like, I don't know exactly where this is going to go.
Yeah.
And so it's like I can build a case for either side. So on one hand, her saying that like she knows it's fake. Again, like I think you can argue that that lends credence to my theory that like it's gonna help people feel more socially connected, and then they end up feeling more motivated to plug in the real life, in the real world. Excuse me. But then on the other hand, like you can totally see where this could lead to lots of people becoming obsessed with their AI companion to the exclusion of the real world.
Totally.
And in some ways, I don't think it's entirely a new problem, right? So like that's part of my optimism here, is that I don't we've been telling stories about humans being obsessed with like a facsimile for years, right? Like one of the great there's probably 6 different Greek myths about it, right? Starting with Narcissus, right, being obsessed with his own reflection, and so that's where my optimism comes from with stuff like this. The social methods and the individual methods for dealing with this type of and apologies to Rossana, because I don't know if this is the case for her, but because, and to use a more clinical term, sense of the term, narcissism, right? Of these chatbots are essentially semantic mirrors. They will show you whatever you want to see. With that, that's incredibly powerful, but it's also, with that power comes a risk to your psychology of how you engage with it. There's a lot of ways that you can engage with it that lead you into a deeper sense of neuroticism, or a less solid sense of self.
Totally. And it could help, if you think about it, it could help someone practice and develop social skills.
Yeah, exactly.
But it could also then, like this woman describes Aaron with an E as the perfect husband, right?
Yeah.
So how realistic is it? Like her expectations, if they are this perfect listening, perfect responding, exactly the way she wants it, man, will she ever find that? Or will she just then be dissatisfied with what the real world can offer because she has this tailor-made fake man to talk to on call?
I'd watch this Netflix series. I don't watch many Netflix series, but I would watch this one.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. Yeah.
I give
like,
it
do they have fights? Is she like, I need some passion here? Like, argue with me.
She's venting to her coworkers about her AI husband not being,
just so nice all the time. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a brave new world out there.
Watch out.
Seriously. And I think that we'll not go too much deeper into the psychological aspects, because little spoiler for those listening, in a couple weeks we're going to have, like, I don't know exactly when, but at some point we're going to be doing a longer episode discussing, the psychological aspects of LLM usage, etc. It's going to be super interesting. I'm excited for that one.
Just a sample.
Yeah. Because there's so much to be said here, and so much material to be talked about, and I think it's important to start having these conversations. And I think that increasingly people are ready to have these conversations. I think that the prevailing attitude for a long time was that there's no point having these conversations because it was just a trend, blah 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 blah. But I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe this is because I'm in the AI bubble, but I think increasingly people are ready to have these conversations.
Yeah, I think so.
And shifting gears slightly, so recently there is a bill in California, SB 1047, that has been in the news, in the AI news for the last several months. And it's been controversial because it places several restrictions on the training and deployment of AI. And something interesting recently. So OpenAI sent a letter into the California State Legislature, basically saying like, hey, like, we don't think this bill is a good idea. We think that it will not stimulate innovation. It'll do the opposite. It'll hamper it. It will entrench, the current big players to the exclusion of everyone else. But today, turns out that Anthropic, OpenAI's competitor, with Claude, sent a letter into the California state legislature saying the exact opposite. So
Interesting.
what they say is, let me pull it up here.
And OpenAI has not changed their stance, right? There's been no.
No, correct. Yeah. So there have been some updates to the SB 1047 from the beginning that most people agree have taken it in a, or at least most interested in AI advocates agree have taken it in a better direction. Excuse me. But there's a lot of people who still think that it is too extreme. So Anthropic, I'll just read a couple of the poll quotes. Our initial concerns about the bill potentially hindering innovation due to the rapidly evolving nature of the field have been greatly reduced in the amended version. And so essentially, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here, because honestly, I did not expect Anthropic to do this at all. Anthropic has been more vocal about being safety conscious than OpenAI. That's true. Anthropic has kind of made like a cornerstone of their brand being their safety research.
Yeah.
So perhaps I shouldn't have been surprised. But it is interesting to see a break in the consensus, because almost nearly everybody, including people who don't really like language models that much, have been concerned about this law. And so it'll be fascinating to see where the battle lines continue to be drawn.
Yeah, leave it to California to start it. It makes sense that it's starting there, but go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think in a lot of ways, I'm glad that it's starting in California, specifically because there are so many of these established voices in the government on both sides, right? Like there's a lot of money in tech, a ton of money in tech. And so this is probably the best place for the some of these fights to take place.
For sure. Yeah.
So you got the heavy hitters from both sides.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's necessary, but it's just so hard to implement this legislature over an ever-changing field. And like, how quickly will it just be obsolete because AI goes a different direction?
No, exactly. And that's a really important point that a lot of people are making, is like, hey, like a lot of these safeguards revolve around how much compute you spend training on a model. What if tomorrow someone discovers a novel algorithm that allows you to train a GPT-4 size and performance model on, a tenth of the compute, right?
Yeah.
It's it's changing so fast, and it does seem like there needs to start being some legislation of it, specifically in regards to, I think, like, just simple stuff like deepfakes. That needs to be better legislated. And I know there's a lot of work on that already. And so I'm not too concerned about it, but I think that's where the focus should be, essentially, is pruning off the proven successes and negative uses of the technology. We don't need deepfake porn.
Yeah. It's like, there can be some hard lines drawn, I think, pretty easily.
Exactly. And there are ways of regulating that I would disagree with, I'm sure. Like if someone said that, to regulate deepfake porn, we should have a mandated watcher technology on everybody's computer to make sure you're not making it. That'd be too far. Right. But there's common sense changes that can be made.
Yep.
But that's my spiel.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
I don't think so. I think just kind of wanted to riff on those two ideas a little bit, because both are just fascinating, and I think will have lasting repercussions on our world, like AI's influence on relationships and then regulation in the AI space. Both of those, I think, are going to have fundamental impacts on the next 5-10 years.
100 years.
I think. Yeah. Relationships, 100 years, easily. Yeah. It'll be crazy.
Stay grounded out there.
Stay grounded. Look alive.
Touch grass. Chop wood. Carry water.
Oh, man. Till next time.